The battle for Willow Creek. The first time I saw Willow Creek, it wasn't just a body of water, it was a promise. Tucked behind my new home in Pineview Estates, the creek wound through a quiet valley, its surface catching the dawn like a mirror. I'd bought the place at 62, after decades as a civil engineer, chasing a simpler life. The house was modest, a single-story rancher with creaky floors, but the creek? That was my sanctuary. It hummed with life, minnows darting, herons stalking, and cattails swaying in the breeze. My late wife, Ellen, would have loved it. I scattered her ashes under a sycamore tree where the fireflies gathered each June. That creek wasn't just mine, it was ours. Pineview Estates sat in a sleepy corner of Virginia, a planned community with trimmed hedges and mailboxes all painted the same shade of forest green. Only 6 homes backed up to Willow Creek, mine included. The rest of the neighborhood fanned out in tidy rows, governed by the Crestwood Homeowners Association. I didn't mind HOAs at first. They kept things orderly, or so I thought. But order and control aren't the same, and Crestwood's HOA, led by a sharp-tongued woman named Deborah Vance, didn't know the difference. Trouble started small. A letter chided me for my backyard wildflowers too unkempt for their taste. Then they complained about my rain barrels, calling them an eyesore. I shrugged it off, figuring it was just bureaucratic noise. But one morning, as I sipped coffee on my homemade dock, I saw something that stopped me cold. A greasy film coated the creek's surface, swirling with an unnatural sheen. Bits of debris, broken concrete, plastic shards, a rusted nail floated near the bank. The air carried a sour, chemical tang, like asphalt after rain. My gut churned. This wasn't nature's doing. I'd spent 35 years studying soil stability and water systems. I knew a contaminated waterway when I saw one. I grabbed a jar, scooped a sample, and walked the creek's edge. 2 lots down, I found tire tracks deep, heavy ones, not from a pickup but something industrial, like a dump truck. A month earlier, the HOA had announced a community enhancement project, a new pavilion near the entrance. I hadn't paid it much mind until now. That night, I stayed up, lights off, watching from my back window. At 1:47 a.m., headlights flickered across the water. 2 unmarked trucks idled near the HOA's wooded buffer zone. Men in dark jackets unloaded piles of rubble, cement chunks, drywall, rebar straight into the gully that fed the creek. My hands shook, not with fear, but with rage. This wasn't a mistake. It was a crime. The next day, I marched to the HOA office, a sleek building by the community tennis courts. Deborah Vance met me with a practiced smile. I laid out my evidence. Photos, GPS-stamped video, the water sample's cloudy residue. I cited federal clean water laws. Her smile didn't waver. "Are you suggesting we're breaking the law, Mr. Harlan?" she asked, voice like ice. I didn't blink. "I'm saying someone's poisoning my creek." She leaned forward. "Make accusations without proof, and you'll regret it." I left, her threat ringing in my ears. They thought I'd back down. They didn't know me. The creek's condition worsened. Dead fish base, bluegill bobbed belly up. A family of mallards I'd watched all spring vanished. The smell grew sharper, like bleach and rot. I collected more samples, noting pH levels and sediment. One evening, I found a young deer collapsed near the bank, foam at its mouth, eyes glassy. I carried it to my shed, wrapped it in a tarp, and drove it to the state wildlife lab. "Suspected chemical exposure," I told the tech. She nodded grimly. I emailed the HOA board, attaching photos and a polite but firm demand for action. 2 days later, a cease and desist letter arrived, accusing me of defaming the HOA. They warned of fines, even a lien on my home. I laughed bitterly. They were bullying the wrong man. I called an old colleague, Rachel Torres, now with the State Department of Environmental Quality. "Jim, this is big," she said after I sent her my evidence. "But HOAs are slippery. Get more proof, something undeniable." I rented a drone. At 2:13 a.m., it captured 2 trucks dumping sludge into the creek's feeder stream. The footage showed a man rigging a chute to channel the waste directly into the water. I traced one truck's plates to a defunct company, Pine Ridge Hauling, linked to Deborah's brother-in-law, Carl Vance. I filed an anonymous tip with the county and sent Rachel the video. The HOA's next newsletter called my efforts a smear campaign. Neighbors avoided me. One, a retired cop named Frank, muttered "troublemaker" as I passed. But a single mother, Lisa from Lot 14, slipped me a note, Keep going. The breaking point came when I found a dead heron, wings slick with grime, tangled in reeds. I waded in, the water stinging my skin, and carried it out. That night, I sent the wildlife labs report petroleum compounds and Lyme toxicity to Rachel, copying the EPA. Hours later, she called. Jim, the governor's office saw your footage. They're sending a team. Stay sharp. The governor's visit was quiet, no fanfare, just a gray SUV. Governor Daniel Pierce, in jeans and a windbreaker, walked the creek with me. His aide, Claire Yoon, took notes. At the dump site, Pierce knelt, dipping his hand into the water. His fingers came up coated in gray slime. Reminds me of a case in '98, he said. Factory runoff. Took years to fix. We won't let that happen here. I handed over my evidence. Drone clips, lab reports, the deer's necropsy. He shook my hand. We'll handle it. The HOA panicked. Deborah sent cheery newsletters about unity. Board members knocked on my door with a fruit basket, urging me to clear the air. I didn't budge. Talk to the governor, I said. They left, faces pale. Then the retaliation started. My mailbox was smashed, my yard cited for clutter. An unmarked car idled outside my house at night. I kept quiet, logging every incident. The state moved fast. The EPA installed monitoring buoys. Soil samples confirmed benzene and phosphates. Deborah was subpoenaed. Carl was arrested at a truck stop, his rig full of illegal waste. The HOA office was padlocked, and files were seized. Neighbors, once silent, now rallied. Lisa organized a meeting. Frank, the cop, stood up. My dog got sick from that water. I was wrong about you, Jim. The room clapped. At a press conference, Governor Pierce named Willow Creek a state priority. One man's courage exposed a network of greed. He said, calling me to the podium. I spoke simply. This creek isn't mine. It's ours. We let it die once. Never again. The crowd roared. The cleanup took months. The EPA dredged toxic silt, planted reeds, and restocked fish. The HOA dissolved, replaced by a volunteer council. I advised on restoration, tracking water clarity. One morning, I saw ducklings trailing their mother, the creek sparkling under the sun. A frog croaked. I sat on my dock, Ellen's sycamore swaying overhead, and felt peace. Deborah was convicted of fraud and environmental crimes. Carl faced federal charges. Pineview Estates changed. Fences came down, potlucks sprang up. A kid named Tim, Lisa's son, gave me a drawing, Mr. Harlan, Creek Hero. I hung it by my fireplace. A letter came from a woman in another county, fighting her own HOA over a polluted stream. I wrote back, be steady. One voice can shift the tide. Willow Creek wasn't just water anymore. It was proof that truth, even whispered, could win. What do you think? Have you faced injustice or corruption in your community? Share your thoughts in the comments, especially on how we confront greed and protect what matters. Your voice counts.